Hey everyone, and welcome to, wait, where am I? Oh great, that's just fantastic. I'm inside a Game Boy Micro again, aren't I? Oh, I hate when that happens. Like, you probably can't listen to what I'm saying very clearly right now. You're probably reaching for the captions button as we speak, and what's next? Some guy's just gonna come over here and like turn the system off randomly without any warning? Wait, no, don't do that!
This is probably one of the rarest Nintendo related items I've recently gotten since the Virtual Boy, the Play-Yan Micro. I don't blame you at all if you've never heard of it. You get barely any suggestions if you look it up on YouTube. If you search for it on eBay, well, as of this video, you only get a listing for a guidebook, and it's rarely being sold at all. So what was the Play-Yan Micro? Well, it was one of two different media devices released by Nintendo for the Game Boy Advance at the very end of its lifespan, like 1 year after the DS launched. The GBA was no stranger to playing full motion video. In 2004, Game Boy Advance video cartridges containing different Western animated shows and movies were released, but the Play-Yan allowed you to play your own media content instead. The original Play-Yan was released in February 2005 in Japan for 5,000 yen. It played MP3 music files and video files in the weird ASF format and featured a little white stick figure as its mascot. You might recognize him as the guy known simply as Play-Yan, who would go on to become a recurring character in the Rhythm Heaven series. And that is basically one of the only remnants of the Play-Yan's legacy left on current Nintendo history, besides the reference in the 3DS music player. But this here is the Play-Yan Micro we're talking about. It was released on September 13th, 2005 in Japan alongside Radbait, the Game Boy Micro, and retailed for the same price as the Play-Yan. It was also released in Europe under the less memorable name of the Nintendo MP3 player, and in North America it just wasn't released at all. It was pretty much the same as the original Play-Yan, but with a smaller size, ability to play MP4 video files, with a small cartridge we'll talk about later, and a lack of really simple minigames that could be downloaded for the original Play-Yan. This was a neat redesign, but it was also only available through Nintendo of Japan's online store. And add to it the DS's booming success, and you've got a product which was basically doomed to eternal obscurity. To get one of these nowadays, you probably have to lurk around Japanese online auctions until one comes up or something. I was very lucky to find a local seller, so I'm glad I'm able to cover it for you guys here. Well, let's take a look at the thing itself real quick. Its shape is definitely different from the regular GBA cartridge. The three standout things here are the logo written on the protrusion from the bottom, an SD card slot on the side, and a headphone jack on the bottom. We'll get to that soon enough. The Play-Yan Micro supports SD cards up to 2GB in size, but in reality it only reached the first gigabyte. Mine came with a 1GB mini SD card along with an adapter. I don't think I've ever seen an actual mini SD card before. There is no special software needed to say sync media files and all that. You just plug it into your computer, plop some files onto it, and there you go. Simple as that. Or not so simple because you might have to convert some of the files to play on it, but one step at a time here. Here I've got several tracks from different games as well as the soundtrack for Rhythm Heaven DS on a separate folder. You can see here that it's also got an INI settings file which keeps track of various settings. Most of these settings can be adjusted in the software itself as well, but there is one special option here, the Play-Yan design option. If you set it to 0, then the UI uses its standard design, but if you set it to 1, then you get a Mario theme instead, made to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. I would prefer having the man Play-Yan himself, but he is sadly exclusive to the original version. By the way, I figured I'd mention this here since there's no good place to put it, but according to Nintendo, the Play-Yan Micro was designed with the Game Boy Advance SP and Game Boy Micro in mind. And while you can technically still use it on an original Game Boy Advance, Nintendo actually advises against doing so due to the high power requirements of the Play-Yan Micro itself. You can also use it on a Game Boy player for the GameCube if you so desire, but I have neither of those things, so I'll stick to the newer GBA models for now. Alright, back to the software itself. It is very much a straightforward, no-frills design. Right off the bat, you can choose between playing music or videos. So let's go into the music menu here, and you can choose a song in your SD card to play, complete with folder support. So let's play, for example, one of my favorite vocal songs from the Rhythm Heaven series, Dreams of Our Generation. Okay, I know what you're thinking. AK, who in their right mind would use this as an MP3 player when the GBA speakers are mediocre at best? And you're not wrong about the speakers being crappy, but this is where the cartridge's headphone jack comes in. It completely bypasses the GBA sound system, so when you plug your headphones or speakers into it, you get, well, very crisp audio. This also means you can use headphones on your GBA SP without any sort of adapters, which is another big plus. And coupled with the Play and Micro's built-in sleep function that you can toggle by holding down the start button, you can put your GBA SP or Micro to sleep, then go about your business listening to music. In that regard, the Play and Micro makes for a pretty decent music player. For controls, up and down on the D-pad adjust the volume. Tapping left and right changes songs, but holding it down lets you fast forward or rewind the current track. Start acts as a pause button and select toggles between several loop and shuffle options like your typical media player. Holding R shows some more intriguing options. Pressing up and down while holding R adjusts the level of surroundness of the sound? Yeah, apparently what it does is create some sort of virtual surround sound effect. I tried it using a pair of earphones, and while I'm not an audiophile so I can't explain what it truly does, it kind of feels like it takes the quieter instruments in a song, makes them louder, and places the source right in the middle of your head. For example, while listening to Jump Up Superstar, having the surround option set to the highest level makes the piano much more noticeable. Oh yeah, and tapping the A button creates a bunch of Marios that dance with you. Neat, I guess? So yeah, for 2005, this would have been a pretty good solution for playing MP3 songs. There are a few downsides though, such as the aforementioned 1GB size limit, and the inability to scroll through and choose other songs without stopping the current track. Well, let's move on to the video player portion of the Play and Micro, where things are slightly more complicated. Just like the music player, it presents you with a list of videos on the SD card to scroll through. But while the Play and Micro does support MP4 files in addition to whatever ASF files are, you can't just drop a random MP4 file on the SD card and expect it to be readable. The official website for the Play and Micro has specifications for what MP4 files are most supported. Most of the limitations are understandable, such as the sub 240p resolution, 30 frames per second, and the like. But the most important part is the video format. The Play and Micro only supports the MPEG-4 video format, while the majority of videos on the internet use the newer H.264 format. I'm gonna spare you the technical details, but basically, to make an MP4 file work on the Play and Micro, we're gonna have to do some good old-fashioned conversion. There's this little online conversion site that conveniently lets us convert a regular MP4 file while specifying different detailed settings, including the video codec. Nintendo also packaged a software called Media Stage with both Play and models. It was basically a Windows application that converted videos and music to be compatible with the Play and, but mine didn't come with it, and these online tools do the same job. Once you have your converted video, just place it in the Play and Micro's SD card and you're good to go. Just be aware of the limited space. And yeah, it plays as good as you'd expect a video to play on the Game Boy Advance's tiny screen, both in size and resolution, along with really compressed audio.
My hype for the upcoming WarioWare Gold on the 3DS is real. I mean, it's getting a Megamix treatment with the largest selection of microgames ever. And it's also the first—
I don't think you can even listen properly to what I'm saying in this core video. It is pretty comparable to the Game Boy Advance video cartridges. But once again, if you plug in your headphones into the cartridge's headphone jack, you'll still get the raw, high-quality audio from the video. So that bumps the viewing experience up from a mediocre to satisfactory. The playback options are mostly similar to the music player, but now you can also adjust the video brightness with the L and R buttons. All in all, it's not too shabby for a portable media player from 13 years ago. To top things off, I should also talk about the battery life. According to Nintendo, the Play and Micro is capable of 10 to 20 hours of music playback in sleep mode, and 3 to 5 hours of video playback depending on the model of your GBA. It's actually a bit more than I expected. I thought it wouldn't last more than a few hours playing music, but it does indeed look like it is pretty capable of functioning as an MP3 player when you're out and about. And that was the Play and Micro. To be honest, I could see this as a very enticing purchase for existing GBA owners when this was released, since smart devices were still very uncommon back then. While American kids were blowing their minds over being able to watch SpongeBob episodes on a cartridge, Japanese and European kids were instead getting their mind blown by the fact that they could just put their own videos and music on an SD card and then instantly watch them on their Game Boy. Poor America. But alas, the Play and Micro was doomed to obscurity for several reasons, most notably due to the rise of the DS, which basically stole the spotlight away from anything GBA related, the rival PlayStation Portable, which also had similar media playback capabilities, And lastly, the rise of smartphones to the mainstream in 2007 and beyond, since people prefer to actually be able to see their videos clearly. Still, the Play-N and Play-N Micro are neat little pieces of hardware, and are simply 2 more items on the Game Boy family's already impressive resume of things they can do besides playing video games, such as taking and printing photos. Huh, you know what, that actually sounds pretty interesting.
Okay, can someone get me out of here right now? Hello?